Hey, what's up, Capital Wastelanders? It's time for another run in the good old DC area. Before we can even discuss the character we're running as, let's pop up his special allocation. Now, Fallout 4 Special is quite a bit different from what we're used to here in Fallout 3 and New Vegas. Luckily for us, Preston also has a set of Special in Fallout Shelter, and we're gonna go with that one. Fallout 4 Special would be pretty strong in the preceding games, and I think that the Shelter stats are more appropriate for a younger Preston. Oh, and because we always get the energy weapons bobblehead in our runs, being that it's located in Raven Rock, a place that's mandatory to go to for the plot, that makes my life a little bit easier, so that's pretty sweet. Now, why bring up the bobblehead out of nowhere? If you're new here, first off, welcome, love to see ya. Just know that in our Fallout 3 runs, we added the stipulation of acquiring the 3 bobbleheads pertaining to our tagged skills. Now, Preston doesn't have tagged skills as Fallout 4 lacks the skill tree in favor of the perk chart, so I made up 3 for him. Energy weapons, of course, because he rocks the laser musket that is his default weapon. I figure that barter is a good one too. Settlements grow and thrive with some good old mercantilism, and we know how Preston feels about helping settlements. Last but not least, speech. Preston Garvey is an inspirational figure in the Commonwealth. Settlers recognize him as we spread Minutemen influence, and he's even got an imposter fanboy. And while I wouldn't say that Preston is the most charismatic character, he does bring hope to the Commonwealth and is a very easy person to talk to. Being easy to get along with also makes the Minutemen look good, and good relations also help settlements with growing and prospering. Another thing about our favorite settlement helper is that none of his specific gear is available in Fallout 3, so just like with the bobbleheads and the tag skills, I came up with some replacements. In place of his Minuteman hat, we've got the Sheriff's hat, so we'll also be gaining a +1 passive to our perception. In place of the Colonial Duster is the Regulator Duster. That feels pretty on-brand for Preston. I think that if he were born in the Capital Wasteland instead of the Commonwealth, that he would make a decent Regulator. And of course, the laser musket is not in Fallout 3, so we'll be using the standard laser rifle for just such an occasion. We could think of it as an energy weapons training course for Preston when he goes on to handling his signature weapon when he's older. Also, there is a laser rifle variant that we can acquire as per our typical rules, but that's not going to be for quite a while. All of that out of the way, time to set the scene for our younger Preston. Now, I don't know his exact age. Going by what we know about him and how handsome his adorbs little self is in Fallout 4, I'm gonna guess in Fallout 4, late 20s, early 30s, a little bit older than Piper, certainly. Like, isn't she like 26 or something? Anyway, as Fallout 3 takes place 10 years before 4, we've got a younger Preston on the scene, and while the core of his character outside of him being a meme remains intact, we do have a bit of wiggle room here since he's younger and a bit more impressionable, as are we all at that age. Of course, he has the calling to help settlements, but there's no soul survivor to pawn that task off on. So the Minutemen jokingly told a young Preston to, quote, head off to that savage Capital Wasteland and help settlements. We helped out settlements in places like Connecticut already, and made the cut for the Minutemen, so now it's your turn to do the same. This, of course, is a lie. But poor young Preston, naive and gullible. But this poor fella's about to have a lot more to worry about than that. Preston goes, okay, got it, and left without even questioning. Probably for the better because the Minutemen play it off as a joke and have a laugh at that poor guy's expense. Now, if you think that's being mean, well, if you haven't played Fallout 1, just know that the Vault Dweller's initial meeting with the Brotherhood of Steel is kind of like this, though the Capital Wasteland is a little bit less dangerous than the Glow, in my opinion. But hey, our OG protagonist pulled it off, so there's no reason why Preston can't do the same, especially since we're the ones controlling his destiny. And gotta say too, all in all, I've been excited for this run for a while because there's a lot of places here in the Capital Wasteland that we can go help out. And hey, if I miss 1 or 2 settlements by the end of the game, any companions that we may have gotten, well, we can go send them off because I think after this run, Preston's going to have earned himself a nice long rest. In addition to the bobbleheads, I am going to try to help as many settlements out as I can. Not just because we're playing as Preston, but I do really like places like Canterbury Commons and Arafu's got a fun little quest. If you're wondering why we're in Vault 108 so early, I mixed up the locations of the Charisma and Speech bobbleheads and thought it was here. Oh well, let's go help out a settlement, shall we? And what better one to help than the Republic of Dave? It's election season, baby. I think it's good that we get Preston involved with the politics of not just the Capital Wasteland, but in general, you know. Getting into politics is always a positive thing for people, right? And to be fair, if we are going to do this to Preston, what better way to introduce him to democracy than the Republic of Dave? I mean, our fair president here even allows for voting. And even better, Preston tells Dave that he comes from the Commonwealth, a place that's full of helpless, unarmed villages to the northeast. And, well, Dave sees the appeal of this conversation. It's like, yeah, here's a bit of charity. We're gonna go annex the Commonwealth later. So good job, Preston. Off to a great start with those foreign relations. Now, what's cool about this little quest is that you can actually influence the outcome and get one of 3 people to become president. Of course, we can go with the correct decision and keep Dave in power because Dave is the best president to ever grace the capital wasteland. We can get his wife Rosie to run, in which it will go from the Republic of Dave to the Democracy of Rosie. I think that's a bit more up Preston's alley, honestly. And we can also get Bob, Dave's son, to run. So President Dave wants Preston to go get everybody to vote because it is election day. What a fine time to arrive here in the Republic. And in addition to those 25 bottle caps that President Dave in his immense generosity gave us, we can also get the Perception bobblehead, so our special in Perception is now at base 10. It doesn't go any higher, unfortunately, even with buffs. So after chatting up with the citizens of the Republic of Dave, as mentioned before, Preston is a bit more taken with Rosie's approach. Also, her experience as a caravaner, pretty big plus for Preston, considering, you know, Minutemen, caravan, settlements, all that good stuff. She probably would be a bit better for it in his eyes, although... Now, the way that you get someone other than Dave as president is to rig the election. And I was considering doing that, but as if the game itself said that this is a terrible idea, that the game itself wants to vote. Well, I talked to Jessica here, and, well, turns out she got bugged and won't actually place her vote. Well, the emergency executive powers are in effect, so I guess there's no election this year. President Dave for 4 more years? That sounds good to me. And hey, we did try to help this settlement. And speaking of helping, Canterbury Commons, one of my favorite places in the entire game. I love the quest where you can actually invest in the caravanners. The more bottle caps you invest in them, the better the inventory. And in this run, we are definitely going all in, at least for now, with Lucky Harith's caravan, because Lucky sells weapons, and I want microfusion cells as soon as possible. Now, we will return here periodically to invest in the other caravans, and there is another quest here involving 2 beings called the Mechanist and the Antagonizer, who have been fighting in the streets of Canterbury, much to the chagrin of the residents. But we'll come back for that a bit later. The next settlement on our helping list is Tenpenny Tower. After speaking with the residents and hearing Roy Phillips's rather overt threat against Tenpenny Tower, I'm thinking that Preston Garvey, especially a young one, would take it upon himself to help the residents of Tenpenny Tower because Roy looks like, and totally is, a raider. And as Preston is traversing through Warrington Station, seems like that is a good call because Roy Phillips has a bunch of feral ghouls at his command. Now, maybe Preston wouldn't know that the feral ghouls are under his command specifically, but it turns out that this is a good idea, especially if you are willing to side with Tenpenny all the way here. Now, doing this will cause us as the player to forever lose out on the ghoul mask, but I don't mind that too much because finally in a run we don't have to go to Dunwich Building, so we really don't need the ghoul mask at all this run. But so far so good. Preston is mowing through the feral ghouls, and I mean, with the laser rifle, that's not too difficult. Now, I gotta say, one thing about this weapon, especially early on, is that they don't sell microfusion cells for quite a while. I think level 6 is when they start selling them. Feel free to correct me on that. But while we deal good damage, at the same time, every shot really does count, and I cannot begin to articulate how happy I am to be using a Fallout 3 laser rifle instead of New Vegas. Now, the New Vegas one probably is a little bit stronger, I actually don't know. But in New Vegas, you expend 2 microfusion cells per shot, where in this game, you only expend 1. I actually did forget about that at the start of the run, which is why I gave myself a bit more microfusion cells to start with, because I was expecting to fire 2 per shot, but only 1. Even then, we are not exactly swimming in microfusion cells. But with Michael Masters down and Bessie Lynn also going down, all we gotta do now is take out Roy Phillips, and he's just kind of hiding out in this corridor drinking some water. I say perfect place for us to stage an ambush, and we take out the 3 figureheads of Roy Phillips' gang without taking any damage. That's pretty sweet. All said and done, we can go ahead and head back to Chief Gustavo and get our awesome reward in the form of 700 bottle caps. Chief Gustavo is a hard man, but he is impressed with Preston's performance. Another great reason to side with Tenpenny Tower is that we get to keep Chief Gustavo because he's a weapons vendor and therefore is one of the most useful characters in these solo challenges. Oh my god, I actually called it a solo challenge. Oh, I've been working too much on my Pokemon stuff lately. Anyway, what do you say we go get that next bobblehead? Evergreen Mills, here we come. Getting up here isn't too difficult, and it provides an excellent vantage point. However, as you can see by our ammo, we really need to be careful. Despite our lack of ammo, however, I am very confident because we do have a solid ace in the hole for clearing out the raiders down below. Now, as we Batman our way from rooftop to rooftop here, the raiders can't do much to us. I mean, they can hit us, but most likely they're gonna miss. Maybe a stray bullet or two will hit us. Not much to worry about. The raiders, however, are about to have something to really worry about. Make our way on over to where this pit is, and we can destroy this generator and let loose the super mutant behemoth. And while this is an effective solution for dealing with the raiders, we also have to kinda hope that the raiders deal a good bit of damage to the super mutant behemoth, because depending on whoever survives, we have to finish off the surviving party. It's almost certainly going to be the behemoth, because, I mean, even though he's taking quite a bit of damage, all he needs to do is get to the raiders, hit them once or twice, and it's good night, Irene. And gotta say, the raiders sure are broing out hard for Preston here, doing all the work for him, taking out that giant green. I just really want to see a can of the green giant green beans with a Super Mutant Behemoth mascot. And hey, speaking of which, Super Mutant Behemoth with 2 bars of health left, so this shouldn't be too bad, I hope. Hotshot that raider, and it's time to take on the Super Mutant Behemoth. We are definitely not going down there. And things do get a little bit stressful as I do miss a couple of shots, and we're down to about 11 shots left. Oh boy, not great. I do finally connect with this shot, and for some reason he really seems to want to hug that building, and hey, that's perfect for us because now we have a nice, relatively straight line of sight. And boom, aced. Now we just gotta get down from here. I didn't think this one through nearly as much as I thought I did. And now, luckily for me, as I parkour from one to the other, quick save, all that good stuff, I do see a little spot we can land on in the corner of my eye there. Once we get down, we'll go ahead, resupply, and take on Evergreen Mills. You know, I wasn't thinking about Evergreen Mills when I picked the barter bobblehead for Preston. I was just kind of thinking it would be good for him in character. But having Preston come to Evergreen Mills feels very in character. We might be a decade short of the open season quest for Nuka World, but that doesn't mean that Preston Garvey can't participate in some good old-fashioned target practice. I always really liked this place. I don't think it's the most challenging, but the location's cool, and there's a lot of great loot here with all the raiders that we can kill. Of course, the barter bobblehead's awesome. Just the general atmosphere of this place is one of the best in the game, I think, and that's a pretty high bar to set because a lot of Fallout 3's locations have excellent atmosphere. One thing that does make this place a bit challenging, though, is that because Preston canonically doesn't have a Pip-Boy, we only use it for the purposes of our inventory management and fast travel. The no VATS I can deal with, but not having a flashlight and no cat's eye, I don't think cat's eye's in Fallout 3 anyway, actually makes this pretty rough. Really makes you appreciate the light sources within this place. If there's one thing about Evergreen Mills I would change, is that I'd have a named raider here, because Evergreen Mills is supposed to be the raider stronghold. And besides the merchant that you can encounter in here, at least I don't think there's a named guy in here. Might be a random encounter outside, but I've never seen it. The strategy here is to take it nice and slow, fight the raiders one-on-one at all times if possible. One-on-one engagements will almost always win because we outgun them, and in rare instances where they might have a better weapon than us, raiders aren't exactly known for having high-quality gear, whether it be weapons or the armor they're wearing. And if memory serves, there are a couple bottles of Nuka-Cola Quantum in here. Throughout all of my Fallout 3 challenges, I actually have been trying to get 30, and I do always come up a bit short, unfortunately. But Girdershade is a settlement, and while I'm not going to require that we do Sierra Petrovola's quest, or whatever you pronounce her name, I'd like to in this run. And if not, well, if we have enough, we can always send Fox or Butch to go take care of it. Wait, no, not Butch. He's in Vault 101. Charon, I guess? Yeah, that would work. Now, speaking of instances where raiders have better weapons than we do, coming up here is real scary. I didn't realize it at the time. It wasn't until after the battle. But this raider we're about to fight actually has a missile launcher, and I got pretty lucky with shooting it out of his hand. And I think I even broke it here. But yeah, that could have been real bad. I just got kind of lucky there. Now, as we make our way past this guy, we have one more raider to take out. And I was thinking about what to do about the merchant. Being that we're playing as a younger Preston, we're going to go with the idea that this vendor is here against his will, and Preston just gives him the benefit of the doubt. Doesn't quite know that he's working with the raiders because, I mean, the merchant doesn't attack us either, so... Now, it took me a hot minute to find the barter bobblehead because without lights, it was a little hard for me to spot. But hey, we got it. That's awesome. A bobblehead we actually have to get, the first of 3, 2 more to go. Now, making a bit of progress in the main story, I do think that Preston would want to help out Galaxy News Radio, and the good fight 100% something he would get behind. And it's his second Super Mutant Behemoth encounter in this run. To conserve our own resources, all we gotta do is just let the Brotherhood of Steel do the bulk of the work. And gotta say, Homeboy dropped some pretty interesting stuff for us this time. And I mean, it's still alive on screen, it's about to go down. You're gonna see here in just a sec. So as we take down Green Giant number 2 and loot the body once we find it, not only do we get some microfusion cell ammo, but a stealth boy. Can you imagine a Super Mutant Behemoth under the effects of a stealth boy and just how horrifying that would be? Oh god, a Nightkin Behemoth, ugh. Okay, so check this out. We're going to turn into Caston, and this character, Victoria Watts, runs from inside of the fort. Like, Caston, my man, I know you're excited for some technology, but you gotta keep these Wastelanders out of your base, my dude. I always hated that Victoria Watts character. She's just lucky that we're playing as Preston Garvey, otherwise I'd just shoot her. Now, here's some interesting context. Preston meeting up with the Brotherhood of Steel early on, very early on. Now, I want to show you this part real quick as we make our way to the Museum of Tech. Being that we have to conserve our microfusion cell ammo as much as possible, right here, I actually go ahead and make use of one of our stealth boys to bypass this encounter. Honestly, not too concerned with having to use one, because we're about to get 3 once we get to the Museum of Tech. And while we bypass those raiders and those 2 turrets, making our way forward, hitting the switch, we can get the jump on this raider here. Might as well, right? We don't draw any aggro, and hey, it's a little bit of experience points, so I'll take it. Just like with Evergreen Mills, get to the Museum of Tech, fast travel back, resupply, and it's time to kick some butt. My sneaky sneaks aren't the greatest because almost immediately we get put into caution, but the basic super mutants aren't much to write home about. Just about every level up we've been getting, I've been trying my best to allocate at least some skill points into energy weapons so that we deal a bit more damage. And just like with the raiders back at Evergreen Mills, one-on-one engagements are ideal because, as you see, Super Mutant number 2 goes down real fast. Now, I mentioned that we'll be getting 3 stealth boys here at the Museum of Tech, so in case you're unaware, if this is your first video, I'm going to go ahead and show you how to get those. The first one is relatively easy, you just got to navigate by the debris at the corner here, and then making our way back, going up the stairs, all that good stuff, banking a left in this corridor, we find the 2 there. And gotta say, I kind of like the parallel to Fallout 4 here, where Preston is trying to help 3 Dog with getting Galaxy News Radio to get a wider broadcast, and then in Fallout 4, by the time we ourselves are in the Commonwealth, we get the Minutemen Radio, and it's just awesome. I do prefer Galaxy News Radio. Actually, Galaxy News Radio is my favorite station out of all of the Fallout games in which the radio is in. But yeah, I thought that was a little interesting detail. I just know somewhere down the road I'm going to have to get that Creation Club mod where you get to go back to Galaxy News Radio and Fallout 4, get Preston up on the scene to come back and help fend off the Talon Company mercs. But yeah, for the most part, this place isn't too bad for us. However, coming up is a bit of a challenge because of our level, and the fact that enemies scale as you level. We got ourselves a good old Super Mutant Master to fight. They usually have Chinese assault rifles, which hurt quite a bit, especially with the light armor we have. However, through use of this pillar here, duck and cover, peek around, take shots, all that good stuff, the Super Mutant Master doesn't do too much to us. But even by the end of the fight, you can see we have about half our health left, so it's a good thing we had that as cover. Alright, so I'll go ahead, get the Virgo Dish 2, head on over to the Washington Monument, install that bad boy, activate the relay, head back to 3 Dog. And then proceed to head on over to Jefferson Memorial. Now, I'm thinking that Preston's involvement in the main story is that in his quest to aid the settlements of the Capital Wasteland, he actually takes an interest in what Dr. Lee says about how her friend has gone missing, James. He hadn't been seen ever since he had stopped by and went over to Jefferson Memorial, figuring that he might be dead. Preston goes over on her behest to see if that's actually true, or maybe he is still alive, but turns out that Through use of the Project Purity holotapes, we discern that James actually heads on over to Vault 112, so he is still alive for the time being. And I don't know about you, but I 100% see Preston being on board with what James wants to do. Clean drinking water for the entire Capital Wasteland? Yeah, what could be a more noble endeavor than that? 100% on board with it. Obligatory mention of Tranquility Lane. Of course, we're going to take the positive karma route out of here. I don't see Preston feeling good about either option, but this would be the better way to go in his eyes. Also, we were in Rivet City, initially at the behest of Moira Brown, because we were trying to find some history regarding that unique settlement, we'll call it. And funny enough, it turns out that Charisma Bobblehead, by accident obtaining it, actually did help us out here, because we have the Charisma response for her here. Actually, a lot of the answers we've had, that was the happiest accident ever. Now, depending on what you do for her, you can get one of 3 possible perks out of this, assuming you don't just convince her to abandon the notion of creating the Wasteland Survival Guide. On screen now are the 3 possible perks that you can get, and of course we did all of the optional ones, trying to help out as much as possible here. So I'm thinking that while Preston is helping out James, that he actually really wants to get to know the guy, because Preston is enamored with the idea of what this guy wants to do, and of course, like we said before, he's on board with it. Preston gets to know James quite extensively. He learns that James had a child, born in Jefferson Memorial. James and his kid went to Vault 101 after his wife's passing. And James left Vault 101 in order to make the Capital Wasteland a better place. Now, Preston doesn't know what went on in Vault 101, so being that all he's hearing is what James has to say, I mean, of course he's gonna like the guy. And the two, although they haven't known each other for very long, actually end up becoming good friends pretty fast. I can see James making a comment about how Preston would have been good friends with his kid. James tells Preston about his kid, Amada, Butch, pretty much everything that his kid went through in Vault 101 and just how proud he is. But unfortunately for James, he didn't quite think through his little departure, and that had ill consequences for his next of kin that he will never know about. But the names of the people in Vault 101 that James brings up are all names that Preston kind of takes to heart. As far as Preston is concerned, James is a hero. But of course, the Enclave's arrival puts a serious wrench in their gears. James sacrificing his life so that Preston, Dr. Lee, and the scientists can escape. And gotta say, this time we do pretty well. I mean, that's usually the case, but we've had some rough shootouts with the Enclave goons. Not really so much this time, and we did take damage, but I don't feel like we were ever in any serious danger. Now, here's a time paradox. Young Preston meeting young McCready. Now, you'll notice that I have child at heart as well as a speech check that we can use to get through here. However, I'm not going to use them because we are being in character here. Preston learns from McCready that some of his friends were captured by Paradise Falls slavers, and, well, Preston's not about to stand for that. To prepare, we're going to make a quick stop back to Megaton, and turns out that there was a transmission sent from the Vault 101 frequency. Something happened with the radio, and, well, an unfamiliar voice is playing through, and Preston decides to listen to it. You know, Colin Moriarty shuts everyone up because, you know, Preston did disarm the bomb, so Preston, although he doesn't really like Moriarty, does command a bit of respect. Preston listens to this message, and considering everything he knows about James up to this point, figures out that this must be someone from the vault. Maybe it's this Amada person, because she sounds very young. No doubt this message was intended for James's kid, so James doesn't realize that the kid left the vault, and the kid is nowhere to be found, really, so probably the worst case scenario. Well, that sounds like a settlement that needs our help, so let's go to Vault 101 for the first time in one of our Fallout 3 challenges. Preston does take a mental note of something that this person said, that the password has been changed to her name. One of the few female names that Preston heard from James was Amada, and this person being who Preston thinks she is, he tries that password, and Vault 101's in for a little bit of a surprise here. And Preston's not really liking what he's seeing here. There are 2 dead vault dwellers here, presumably people who tried to escape the vault. Must be the Overseer's doing. Now, this was interesting right here, because this is supposed to be Officer Gomez if you don't kill him, or if he doesn't die during the events of escape. Now, because I'm playing off of Butch's original file, and I just kind of skipped the entire beginning of the game because of it, I didn't fight any of the officers or anybody on the way out, So I can only guess that Officer Gomez was killed by the rad roaches, maybe? Or maybe Andy accidentally sprayed him with the flamer? Now, the reason why Officer Armstrong isn't just attacking an outsider on sight is because, just like the logic with a lone wander, well, if you've made your way in here and have survived outside, well, we're not going to have much of a chance against you. The one thing here is that Preston chooses to lie here and says that he's a friend of the lone wanderer. He's the one who responded to the summons, because otherwise, well, that would certainly remove what little leverage Preston has here in order to maintain some level of civility. So as Preston is meeting Amada for the first time, he tells her, same thing he told Officer Armstrong, he's a friend of her friend, that the lone wanderer is doing fine but is a bit far away at the moment, and that Preston was tasked with helping out Vault 101 instead. Now, Amada blurts out that this must be for the sake of maintaining some semblance of order, because there are plenty of Vault dwellers here who still blame the lone wanderer for what James did, guilt by association and all that. Now, by the time we make it to Overseer Alphonse, he's already been informed that an outsider has gotten into Vault 101, courtesy of James's child. Alphonse figures out that Amada must have sent some kind of coded message, and that actually wanes his resolve a fair bit because he's trying to quell the rebellion, but apparently Amada has already reached outside help. With a surprisingly civil conversation and exchange of reasoning, the Overseer even decides to step down and appoint Amada. Now, because Amada does banish us in a typical playthrough, of course the same thing happens to Preston, but Preston doesn't really care all that much because he was just here to help, and he has no ties to Vault 101, so she says her usual, "You're a hero, you must leave," and Preston's like, well, okay, mission accomplished. But before we get to Amada herself, I always thought this was really interesting coming up here. As we conclude our conversation with Alphonse, we can access his terminal. Now, one of the entries wasn't here during the events of Escape. This particular terminal entry entails Alphonse's private thoughts regarding a certain outside force called the Enclave, who has made an offer of amnesty. They want to come inside, check out the vault, all that good stuff. The Overseer did refuse this request, which was smart because, we as the players and the fans know what happened the last time the Enclave was welcomed inside of a vault. Say what you want about the Overseer, he does have some wits about him. All said and done, let's go ahead and head on over to Amada, and, the scene we talked about a few seconds ago does play out here. Preston not being able to return to Vault 101, again, not a big deal. Preston knows he's done the right thing here, and the fact that Amada wants to open the doors and trade with other settlements of the Capital Wasteland, a very good thing for the long term. And I do maintain that Preston would tell a white lie for the greater good of a settlement, and don't forget, this is a younger Preston we're dealing with here. Fallout 4 Preston, maybe not, but one who's a bit younger, yeah, why not? After departing from Vault 101 and doing our usual little supply run here, it's time that we enter Paradise Falls. No way does Preston ignore these guys. There's no way that he would just skip out on the chance to save some kids from some slavers. Well, being able to save slaves from slavers in general. And there's no way that Preston would just go inside and pay for their release because he's not about to fund slavers. Now, we do have plenty of ammo at this point, so ammo is not really an issue here. The issue is that, unlike the raiders we've been fighting and some of the super mutants, the Paradise Falls slavers are fairly well armed, their gear is fairly competent. For all intents and purposes, we're outmanned, obviously, because there's just one of us. We're outgunned, and our means of protection is our awesome laser rifle, a duster, and a hat. And as you saw, the outside's no big deal, but once we get inside, it's gonna be a bit of a different ball game. Starting things off as we enter, we're gonna go ahead and pot-shot the nearest slaver. That takes a couple of hits, immediately turn around, go outside, and wait it out. Now, they're not gonna follow us, but we can lose aggro with them, especially because we have a stealth boy, so we're super well hidden anyway. Once in caution, we can come back inside, get back to hidden at just the right time too. Take a look at that. Sneak attack crit, goodbye. Head outside, go ahead and reapply a stealth boy because ours expired. And our next target is going to be the slaver on the walkway at the center with that atom bomb looking thing in the center. We definitely don't want to be out in the open fighting these guys in an open gunfight because we'll go down fast. Luckily for us, that barracks that's empty for some reason is fine shelter, but what's even better shelter is we can go into the hospital here, the clinic. Now, we do have to take out Cutter, the doctor here. Super easy. We're stealth, have the element of surprise. Bye-bye. So not only do we take her out in one shot, But we have her key to the clinic, which means we're about to get ourselves some fat loot. Remember, it's not stealing if you're taking stuff from slavers. And things have gone off without a hitch so far, but things are about to take a bit of a drastic turn here. We're able to lure in some more slavers, Carolina Red and Jotun. We're going to focus Carolina Red down, and while we're doing so, Jotun just beats the crap out of us with that super sledge. But unfortunately for him, Eulogy Jones didn't give him 100 stim packs to hotkey, so we're fine. Still though, that could have gone very differently and way worse. And as we potshot the next slaver, next up is a named character named Clover, who is a potential companion of ours, but unfortunately for her, not the case this run. I'll give her credit though, despite wearing a dress, she's more tanky than any slaver we've killed so far. With Clover down, there's Eulogy Jones and I think 4, maybe 5 slavers left. We'll go ahead and make our way on up to the entrance as we drop in caution here. Turns out a slaver runs to the door, but I guess he forgot how knobs work, apparently. Fine by me, you can just sit there, buddy. I'll take that sneak attack crit all day. And turns out Frank's there too. Now, a wise man once said, "Why did he kill the bartender?" I can't speak for the bartender in that movie, but the bartender here is a slaver. Just 2 more for us to deal with. Starts off great with us one-shotting Ymir with a sneak attack critical hit. And the surviving slaver, no big deal. Very easy to take out. All that's left for us to fight is Eulogy Jones himself. And gotta say, that sneak attack crit did a lot less damage than I thought, but, I mean, we're still in no danger here because it's not like Eulogy Jones is a tank or anything. And best of all, we have the speech bobblehead, and of course plenty of Nuka-Cola Quantum to take for ourselves. Now, we do take out Pronto the shop owner and his slaver bodyguard on the way out, but super easy to kill, so we're going to go ahead and cut straight over to Penny and the little lamplighters. With the lamplighters saved, we're going to head back on over to Canterbury Commons. Yeah, we did go there earlier on the run, remember? And deal with the Antagonizer and the Mechanist. And I gotta say, this was really fun because I haven't done this quest in literal years. Now, getting to the Antagonizer isn't that difficult because, I mean, we've already taken out the Grey Ditch Ants at this point, so these guys aren't much of a problem. We pass a speech check with a 42% to talk down the Antagonizer and get her to surrender peacefully. And I gotta say, I ended up feeling really sorry for this character because she dealt with her trauma in a rather extreme way. She's disillusioned with humanity and took up the role of the Antagonizer, even though she has a personal history with ants kinda devouring her family. About having talked down Tanya, that's her name by the way, all we have to do now is deal with the Mechanist himself. Now, we don't actually have to, that is optional because we only have to get one of them to stop. But if we're going to help out Canterbury Commons, we want the best possible outcome. That said, the Mechanist's headquarters, the Robot Repair Center, is way harder. There's higher-end Mark turrets, Protectrons, of course the Sentry Bot you see on screen, and there is one more we have to fight. Oh, Preston, enjoy these easy Sentry Bot fights while you can, because, I have a feeling that 10 years later, these guys are going to be upgraded and become way, way harder to fight. With everything else here cleared out, it's just us and the Mechanist. Now, the Mechanist is going to be a lot easier to talk down. I think it's because we dealt with the Antagonizer first, so the speech check's easier. Again, feel free to correct me on that. I haven't done this quest in years. That does seem to make the most sense, though, and the Mechanist does have genuine good intentions at heart. But you know what they say about good intentions and the road in which they are paved. I gotta say, man, getting that Charisma bobblehead by accident turned out to be a real lifesaver this run. I haven't failed a single speech check yet. Now, obviously, we're not able to use the Mechanist suit or the Antagonizer suit, but in lieu of completing this quest, we get some nice rewards in the form of microfusion cells here in this room. Man, those are so nice to see. And speaking of nice things to see, our little buddy Billy here has our variant laser rifle, which we can get off of him for free with the Child at Heart perk. I do think Child at Heart perk is something that Preston would have because he's good with people, and I can see kids looking up to him as kind of a role model, so he'd be good with kids too, I think. And honestly, it's just a fantastic perk to have here in Little Lamplight. You get access to a merchant, Knickknack I think's his name, with Child at Heart. You can bypass Paradise Falls entirely with Child at Heart if you really want to. And speaking of Lamplight, we had our buddy Joseph, just like in the last run, help us with jury-rigging that terminal so that we ourselves can bypass Murder Pass in an effort to get inside of Vault 87 and get the Gek to finish James's dream. Now, although we are going to be rocking that laser rifle going forward, we're not going to do away with it just yet, and by do away, I mean we're not going to use it to repair. Now, as you guys know, the first of our obstacles in Vault 87 are the rad roaches, and as I was going through here, I was thinking about it, and I was like, you know what? I don't want to degrade our laser rifle's conditioning, so what I'm going to do is use our OG laser rifle one last time to clean out the rad roaches. Now, of course, I wish I had a melee weapon for such an occasion, but we don't this run, so this will do just fine. And I mean, hey, it's not like they're hard to take out. One shot from our severely deteriorated laser rifle is more than enough to take out these little guys. Oh, the next character we're running in the Mojave Wasteland's not gonna like that scene too well. Switching back to the laser rifle, great start on the super mutants here. One of them is a one-shot with a sneak attack critical hit. And although the super mutant brute with the sledgehammer does manage to close the gap and hit us a couple of times, we deal more than enough damage to take him out super fast. And of course, the one we were shooting at originally goes down real easy. Gotta say, that's a fantastic start. But we were fighting Super Mutant Masters, just one, back at the Museum of Tech, so we're gonna be fighting them here as well. I'm gonna try and be a bit more careful with this one. The Masters are much stronger than the Brutes, and this one has a super sledge. Still, through careful maneuvering, we're able to take him out, chip away at his health bit by bit. As we take out that Super Mutant Master, we're gonna go ahead and make our way upstairs. There's gonna be a Super Mutant on ground level for us to fight, but first things first, we're gonna pull down the one from the walkway. We don't want him taking pot shots at us, and we can lure him to us to make it an ideal one-on-one engagement. By this point, the Brutes aren't too bad for us to fight. We'll go ahead and take out this Brute lickety-split. Doing so, we can go to the center room here, explore a bit, and we're going to sneak our way on over as to not alert the Super Mutant Master lurking in one of the adjacent rooms. We do still have the element of surprise. That sneak attack crit didn't do much, but definitely better than nothing. We take a bit of damage, we cripple his head, and it's good night, Irene. Nobody sticks around long after taking a finisher like that. Alright, gonna biggity bounce, make our way in up to the corridor adjacent to the walkway where we're going to snipe another Super Mutant Master courtesy of Billy's little toy he gave us. I gotta say, I love this gun. It doesn't look any different from a standard laser rifle, but it is very clearly stronger. And well, we've gotten a ton of stealth boys in this run, so we are darn skippy gonna be using them. And it's at this point where I'm starting to think more about those Nuka-Cola Quantums, because there's one in the average lock room. I'm just like, man, how many do I have? I have to have over 20 at this point. But yeah, the rest of Vault 87 pretty much goes off without a hitch because we have a ton of stealth boys. We're practically drowning in the things now. We do what we usually do, and we're going to go ahead and free Fox, because we're going to need Fox for something a little bit later in the run. And I mean, hey, he's just awesome to have along for this part of the ride. And this time, I don't bump into the Super Mutant Brute while under the effects of the Stealth Boy, ruining the entire surprise. Fox will get the Gek for us, so let's go ahead and cut straight to Raven Rock, shall we? And, once again, that Charisma bobblehead is coming in real clutch here. Because as we suit up and get ready to meet with the President, we're accosted by the Enclave officer, like usual. And gotta say, speech check, being able to pass that for a bit of experience points, love that. And I always kind of felt sorry for this guy during this exchange. Like, President Eden berates the crap out of this poor guy who's really just doing his job. And, you know, nice little attention to detail. The officer even apologizes to you for holding you up. I want to put that guy in charge of the Enclave. He seems to be a lot nicer than President Eden. And he certainly seems to be more amenable to reason than Colonel Autumn. Now, as much as I would love to kill these Enclave soldiers and loot their power armor for Protector Caston, we have a very low strength score. That's including with the Ant-Mite buff and the Strength Bobblehead buff. So, using another one of our many stealth boys, we're going to bypass the encounters, make our way on over to Colonel Autumn's room. Now, we usually just get this Energy Weapons bobblehead because it's here and it's the only time that you can get it. But in this run, we have to get it because Energy Weapons is one of young Preston's tagged skills. Now, another thing I like to get in this room is the items in the footlocker there, locked behind an average lock, so you need 50 or greater. We get a ton of 10mm ammo, which we can sell for this run, some mentats, some buff out, and that Zack self-destruct sequence holotape. And as I typically do in my runs, I'll go ahead and play that, and I'll slow down the speed on screen a bit just so you can kind of read along with it. This is a pretty important item because with it, we get the self-destruct sequence to use against Eden if we want to. And I know many people have issue with the writing in the exchange with President Eden regarding the skill checks, and by and large, I can't really blame them for that because it is one of the weaker points. But using the Zack self-destruct sequence feels like a more organic and natural way to get through that encounter, if you're not going to side with Eden. Now, Preston is actually going to listen to what President Eden has to say about his, in regards to his solution. He does so, and upon hearing that, he's just like, yeah, no, hey, guess what? I know your self-destruct code. Eden thinks he's bluffing, Preston reads it, and, well, the rest is history. Now, escaping Raven Rock isn't going to be that hard for us. Now, in addition to Eden's sentry bots and everything else he can control in the base helping us, we do have a 100 in our energy weapon skill, so we're dealing tons of damage with our laser rifle shots. I'm sorry, laser rifle shots, the better weapon, of course. And if you're like President Eden and think I'm bluffing, well, watch this. That Enclave goon one-shot with a sneak attack crit. Oh man, that was awesome. I gotta tell you, while I was playing, I did not see that coming. And a Jefferson Memorial typically isn't that difficult, but I have a feeling we're gonna absolutely breeze through it this time. And I figure, hey, before we go there, let's go to our player housing in Megaton so I can show you guys some of the quest items I've accumulated over the course of this run, because I couldn't show every single thing Preston has done, otherwise this video would be like 3 hours long. I decided to keep some, we'll call them souvenirs. We got stuff like Lesko's lab coat when we helped out Greydish, the repellent stick, of course, from Moira Brown. Now, I figured for the Mesmatron, since we got that off of Grouse, and unfortunately I could not give it to Protector Caston, Preston's gonna hold on to it, that way nobody else can abuse that thing's power. And 22 Nuka-Cola Quantums before Jefferson Memorial. Real shame. I think that's the closest we've gotten to completing Sierra's quest here in one of these challenges. One day we will, but hey, for the context of this challenge, we're just gonna have Fox go collect the other 8 bottles. Because, I mean, hey, after we take out the Enclave at Jefferson Memorial and activate Project Purity, we're gonna have to get Fox acquainted with the whole helping of settlements thing. Preston needs somebody to practice that on before, 10 years later when he meets a certain Vault Dweller from Vault 111. Gonna make us one last pit stop over at Fort Independence before we head on over to Jefferson Memorial. Now, I gotta say, I do like that there's so much different dialogue here with Protector Caston. Like, we give him this Tesla armor, and he's just like, whew. I mean, that's all internal. Outwardly, he's like, yeah, I haven't seen that in a while, so what do you want for this little surprise? Am I the only one who thinks it's really weird that Protector Caston isn't in Fallout 4 at all? Like, you'd think he'd be one of Arthur Maxon's biggest supporters, being from the Outcast, but hey, who knows? Maybe something happened to him and I'm not aware of it. If that's the case, well, let me know in the comments. Maybe he also died in the 10-year time gap. I hope not, though. I like Protector Caston. But here at Jefferson Memorial, man, are you ready for the quickest battle we've had here up to this point? I mean, yeah, 100 in our energy weapons is pretty much overkill, especially with our special laser rifle. Combine that with Sarah Lyons following us, and of course we're gonna need Fox here in just a second. But yeah, man, these guys got demolished this run. Really not much to say about it. I do have something to say about Colonel Autumn, though. Now, as we make our way inside here, there is a speech option that we can use to bypass this encounter, and Preston's kind of feeling it. And now the thing about this little discussion is that Colonel Autumn is being lulled into a false sense of security. Hey, surrender, your president's dead. You don't have to worry, just lay down your arms, we can end this peacefully. And Colonel Autumn's a little suspicious, because he thinks he's gonna get shot in the back once he walks out. But as he starts to relax bit by bit, Colonel Autumn's like, well, where am I gonna go? And Preston just stops him. He goes, ah, Colonel, good sir. There's a settlement that needs your help. Here, I'll mark it on your map, and I'll see you in the Commonwealth. And then Colonel Autumn's just like, oh God, what have I gotten myself into? So hey, at least there's one timeline that we've made where Colonel Autumn not only gets to live, but he's also a settler up in the Commonwealth. He's gonna be, I guess helping out the Minutemen begrudgingly. But hey, a peaceful outcome for everybody. Isn't that what James would have wanted? Oh, and Fox we need, of course, because, well, neither Preston Garvey nor Sarah Lyons will survive entering the radiation chamber. So Fox will, because he's immune to it. That's pretty much why I don't ban companions, because it makes total sense to have Fox just activate the purifier. And because we have to have Sarah Lyons alongside us for this fight, I can't really do anything about having someone tag along anyway. I really hope you guys enjoyed that run, and my take on a younger Preston with Fallout 3 mechanics being that, again, he doesn't have tag skills, and there would be no bobbleheads for him to chase down. Although, now that I think about it, because we find him in a room with a Perception bobblehead, it's kind of poetic that we got the Perception bobblehead with him. Maybe he brings it up to Concord. Now, in addition to our next run, which is Fallout New Vegas as the Roach King, I've got some other runs in store, not necessarily these character-based challenges either. And of course, you guys know that Faction Warriors is coming out soon, but I have another small series in the works, and I think you guys are going to really enjoy it. Until then, I'll see you back in the Mojave. Later.